Hello humans, I am the Black Cat and welcome to Weird Wednesday. Today's story takes us to an elite girls' boarding school in what is now known as Latvia in 1845. The school has just hired a new teacher. Her name is Emilie Sagee. I've probably mispronounced that, but I'm going to say Sage anyway. In fact, this would be her 18th or 19th job as a teacher. For some reason, she hasn't been able to stay in a teaching position for long before she has to move on. Why that is, the school will soon find out. Emily was a good teacher who the students would come to like a lot. She was friendly and caring. Emily enjoyed teaching and spending time with the students. One day, while Emily was teaching a class, she turned to the board in order to write something. While she turned her back to the class, the students watched her write. As she wrote on the board, the students saw another woman standing next to Emily. The second woman was mirroring Emily's movements as she continued to write on the board. When the students reacted to what they were seeing, Emily turned around, but she couldn't see what the students were seeing. After this first encounter, the students supposedly would continue to see Emily's double. During lunch, they would see Emily in the dining hall, sitting at a table eating. Next to her would be her double, again mirroring her movements. This would continue until one day Emily was in the garden while another teacher was teaching a class of 42 girls. Emily recalled that her mind was on the students, wondering how they were doing in their class. As the students worked, the teacher stepped out of the class for a moment. The students claimed that not long after the teacher left, Emily entered the room and sat in the teacher's chair watching them. She didn't move or speak. Some of the students noticed that Emily, the real Emily, was in the garden as they could see her through the window. This Emily that sat and watched them frightened the students, but gathering up their courage, one of the girls approached the double. She carefully attempted to place her hand on the double's shoulder, but her hand moved through the woman as if she wasn't there. The student noted that it felt like she was putting her hand through cobwebs. Terrified, the students ran out of the room. This was the final straw for the school, and they told Emily she would have to leave. Emily left, and no word was heard from her again. So what are the theories? Well, the story of Emily was first published by politician turned spiritualist Robert Dale Owens in his book titled Footfalls on the Boundary of Another World, published in 1860. He claims to have gotten the story straight from the witnesses at the school. However, because apparently finding any evidence of a real Emily teaching at this school is hard to come by, the theory is that the story is actually a work of fiction. It's possible, I guess. But the idea of spirit doubles, or doppelgängers, is something that's been around for many years. There are actually several stories about this phenomenon. So if we consider that the story is true, what could have been happening? Was it an evil entity mocking the innocent Emily? Was Emily perhaps dabbling in some kind of magic and conjured up this entity? Another possibility is that Emily had the ability to project herself. This is something that I personally know is something that can happen. Someone I know would be thinking about a person and that person would claim to see them or hear them calling them. It's possible that Emily was also doing this. The fact that she stated she was thinking about the girls in the classroom when the double came in could point to the idea that she projected herself into the room. From what I can gather, it is possible to project yourself without even knowing you're doing it. Have you ever thought about someone just for that person to suddenly show up or call? Could be that that person was projecting to you while they were thinking about calling you. Or maybe you projected yourself to them. It's an interesting idea. Maybe you could try it and see what happens. Whatever the truth is, no one seems to know what became of Emily after she left the school. Did she continue to have trouble keeping teaching jobs? Or did she get married and give up working altogether? Whatever the truth is, it's an interesting story regardless. But anyway, that's all the time I have for this mystery. Let me know what your thoughts are on this story. Have you had a similar experience? I'd love to hear about it. But anyway, thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed this story, and I'll catch you next time. Bye!